Hey, it's me, Tyler. Bose open earbuds are stylish. The color, the way it looks almost like an earring, so I feel like it could go with anything. My style is very fun. I feel like I always look like I'm on holiday. I just really like playing around with it and tying it to the music. So yeah, I really feel like the music I'm making right now feels like a holiday, so I want to look like it too. Check out Bose.com for more.
Did you know Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company? They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than just quarterback Peyton Manning, I'm also meditating Manning. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
Need a holiday gift that will keep her sparkling all year long? Blue Nile, the original online jeweler, has experts on hand 24/7 who can help you find the perfect piece. Beyond that, Blue Nile makes the gifting experience easier than ever, with guaranteed free shipping and returns, as well as a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Right now, get 30% off jewelry at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com for 30% off. BlueNile.com.
I just MailChimped my marketing.
You MailChimped your what?
I MailChimped my marketing with AI to create an effective marketing campaign in minutes.
No, MailChimp and Way.
Yes, MailChimp and Way. Now I can hyper-personalize my campaigns across email and SMS.
You can do all that with MailChimp?
What did I just MailChimp and say?
MailChimp your marketing with the #1 AI-powered email marketing and automation platform, Intuit MailChimp. #1 based on publicly available data on competitors' customers. Plans vary. SMS available as add-ons. Visit MailChimp.com.
Welcome to the Chalkboard, my fellow football nerds, for episode number 178 of Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Shane Haff, and you can follow me on Twitter and YouTube at Shane Haff NFL. I'm joined today by the best co-host in the game. You've heard him on the Tough Cover radio show. It is Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at @MarkHenryJr_. Mark, how are you doing today?
Doing well. One of the best gambling Sundays of my life, and also with an Eagles blowout win against the Cowboys. Definitely gets you feeling more excited to talk about the goings-on in the NFL here. Victory Tuesday, because I wasn't able to record yesterday, unfortunately, but very excited.
Yeah, things went really well for the Eagles, as we'll get into. Washington loses. Unfortunately, the Giants can't pull off the overtime win in Germany, but the Lions had a chance to lose. We'll get into all of that. I guess it could have gone better, but the immediate things went well. So let's dive into the Munich game, Carolina versus the Giants in Germany. Carolina wins the game 20-17 in overtime, and Mark, this is the first time that Carolina has won consecutive games since week 3 of the 2021 season. So unprecedented winning streak going on in Carolina as they ruin their draft pick. Chuba Hubbard ran for a career high 153 yards and a touchdown. He did have a fumble, but it didn't lead to points for the Giants. And then his counterpart, Tyrone Tracy, also had a nice game on the ground for the Giants. He rushed for 103 yards and a touchdown. Unfortunately, he had a fumble on the first play of overtime, which did lead to points and sealed that game for the Panthers. So that kind of overshadows it. But Tracy's had a really good year for the Giants. And I think as a Giant, well, not this shouldn't be the takeaway from this game. This should have been the takeaway 3 years ago. But the takeaway is Daniel Jones can't be your quarterback. Like, he just can't. He was awful in this game. The worst was, I think it was the 2nd and 1 sack he took on a flea flicker when he had 2 wide receivers wide open. And I do mean wide open. You can go find the screenshot, and I'm not a screenshot quarterback guy, but when a crossing route's your first read and there's nobody within 20 yards, that's a valid screenshot. Just throw the football. Daniel Jones is atrocious. And it looks like the Giants are trending towards having the #1 overall pick. If the season ended today, they would have it. And I would assume they would be making a move at quarterback.
I don't think they'll end up with the number 1 overall pick. I think we'll talk about the team maybe later who I would pick to right now. That game was one of the worst games of all time. It was an act of war against Germany, sending that over. It's unbelievable that they allowed Giants Panthers. There was no point at any point of the offseason where anyone thought that was going to be even a passable game. That is, it's just mean of the NFL to do that, but they're trying to kill off the sport in a country. But you have Daniel Jones looking so bad that you walked away from that game being like, wow, Bryce Young's way better than Daniel Jones. Bryce Young was 15 for 25 for 126 yards. It's not like Bryce Young lit it up or anything. He just wasn't making monumental mistakes in the same way that Daniel Jones was. And the Giants still almost had a chance to win it at the end. Obviously, it went to overtime, so they had several chances to win it. But yeah, this was one of the worst games ever. And I think that the best part about the Giants, the whole Daniel Jones contract and what it allowed, is that I think Brian Daboll is a good coach. Like, I think he keeps them in games that they have no business being in at times. And he's probably going to get fired. And they're going to have to go find a better coach than him. And I think that's going to be hard. If you look at the last couple hires that the Giants made before that, I don't know if I have that much confidence in them to accomplish that goal. So I think that Daniel Jones being so bad is going to cost Daboll his job. And I almost think that that's the best case scenario as an Eagles fan. Yeah.
Man, it's got to be rough, but I mean, the same thing happened with Mike Vrabel last year. Like, it's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles. Watch the Giants go get Vrabel now. That might be the move this offseason. But we've got Brett Eclipse chiming in on YouTube, says not only did they give Germany that horrible matchup, they then gave them an extra quarter of it. So at least for the sake of the fans in Germany, overtime was really short. It was only like 4 plays.
Yeah, it was definitely quick there.
All right, let's roll on to a matchup that had pretty big implications for the Eagles. That was Pittsburgh traveling to Washington, and Pittsburgh wins this game 28-27. And this game's really important because it allows the Eagles to take control of the division right now. They now have a half-game lead with the Thursday night matchup looming with Washington. And the Eagles have a tougher schedule remaining than Washington does. And so the Commanders losing this game is big. The Eagles need to capitalize and win on Thursday as well to really push that lead out. But Russell Wilson connected with Mike Williams on a deep ball with 2:27 remaining to take a lead that the Steelers wouldn't relinquish. It was Mike Williams' only target of the day, but it was an important one. George Pickens just continues to thrive with Russell Wilson at the helm. He had 5 receptions for 91 yards and a touchdown. And to be honest, he has the connection with Russell Wilson that I expected him to have with Justin Fields. Justin Fields was a really good deep ball thrower in college, and I thought that would work well for the Steelers, and they just never got it off the ground. But also, is there something in the water in Pittsburgh that makes like your receivers just be a little bit insane? I mean, you've got the Antonio Brown thing from yesteryears, and now you've got George Washington. Now you have George. I don't know where that.
They had James Washington.
They were playing Washington. They have George Pickens in this game gets intercepted on a pass by a Washington defender. And like, rather than tagging him down, he just like turns and starts fighting another defender. That was bizarre. You've got like the stiff arm on the sideline where he just like tries to like push the guy's helmet off. George Pickens is a little bit unstable, I think. But man, he makes some crazy catches. But you get down to the end of this game and Washington has a chance. They get to midfield. They find themselves facing a 4th and 9, and they complete a pass to Zach Ertz at the sticks coming back to the ball, and he's ruled down short of the marker. It was upheld on review, and the game ends. I mean, it's literally a game of inches. Like, if that pass is past the marker, you're like 5 yards from kicking a field goal. So very close at the end of that game.
And they had a chance again, too, at the end because the Steelers had the ball 4th and 1, and they were definitely going to punt. They weren't going to give them the ball at the 50, and they jump off sides. What a nightmare ending for them.
Yeah, they even asked one of the Steelers players said after the game they didn't have a play call. They were just trying to draw them off sides. So, Jaden Daniels, not his best game. He was 5 of 8 for 49 yards on throws over 2.5 seconds. Overall, he threw for 202 yards on about a 50% completion percentage. Took 3 sacks. He only had 5 rushing yards. And yet there were still several times in this game, though, that he would make a throw and you're just like, a rookie shouldn't make that play. And so it's a rough game stat line wise for him. And I thought that Pittsburgh had a really good, well, I don't know that you have to have a good plan when you have Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt on your defensive line, but they did a really good job against them. And so for the Commanders, you blow a 10-point lead in the second half, and now you head to Philly for a massive showdown on a short week. So what were your thoughts watching this one?
Yeah, Washington got handed a touchdown here basically because there was a fake punt that didn't work early in the game, and they got the ball on the 10-yard line. And Tom, when they asked him about it, he said, "I'll do it again." Because I guess they didn't line anyone up over the gunner. The punter just made a bad throw. And then the Commanders were sitting right there. So I thought the Steelers really outplayed the Commanders from all of this game. Like it felt like they were the deserving team even when they were losing at points. And Washington, Jaden Daniels' stat line doesn't look good. I actually thought it was worse watching it because deep into the third quarter, he had some pretty atrocious stats. And they improved a little bit throughout the fourth and the late third. But it was they did do a great job keeping him in the pocket. They did a great job getting pressure. TJ Watt didn't get any sacks, but he had a ton of pressures. Cameron Hayward got a couple sacks. Highsmith got a sack. One noticeable thing for me with the Steelers, Jalen Warren, I've said this all year and since last year. Najee Harris is terrible. He's been better this year, actually, but in this game, he had 21 carries for 53 yards. Jalen Warren had 7 less carries. He had 13 more yards. Give Jalen Warren the ball more than Najee Harris. He's a better football player. I think that could be an important thing going forward. I think Najee actually got banged up towards the end of the game. So we'll see if Jalen Warren can kind of take that job over going forward. But Washington was without Brian Robinson Jr. here, and you could definitely tell it just couldn't really get anything going on the ground. 22 carries for 60 yards overall, including Jaden Daniels, 2.7 yards per carry on the ground. So that's probably the factor in the game right there because they got given the extra chance with the fake punt. They got given a couple chances, but not being able to run the ball at all is going to kill you.
Yeah, and suddenly over the last 3 weeks since Russell Wilson became the starter, the Steelers are averaging 30 points a game. So, and granted, it's against the Jets, the Giants, and Washington. They've got a big matchup coming up with Baltimore this week, but the Steelers' offense is looking good, and I do think there's some holes in this Washington defense you can take advantage of. Their offense is good, but I have major questions about the defense.
I will just say, give me the Ravens all day in that matchup. I think it's -3 in Pittsburgh. Everyone's going to love Pittsburgh as a home dog. I almost always bet Pittsburgh as an underdog. Tomlin's really good as an underdog. I think this is where we get reminded that Pittsburgh is a good team, but I think that they're going to have trouble with the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Eagles, the top-notch teams in the NFL.
Yeah. So there's one NFC East game left because we don't normally talk the Eagles game. But we do talk NFC East opponents. I don't think we really need to talk about Dallas. Dallas is just atrocious, and they're a complete disaster. So I don't really know that. I don't have anything really to say about Dallas other than they're a disaster, and their season was over before Dak went on IR, and it's certainly over now. So I don't really have much to say there. But is there anything you want to get off your chest in regards to Dallas?
Where's the moon? Let's tear down the whole stadium. The guy's insane. What a crazy person. The Eagles are obviously they're leaps and bounds better than the Cowboys. But what I will just say about the game is that's how you don't see dominating performances in the way that we saw Eagles Cowboys and Eagles Giants the last couple of weeks very often. I know that there's, extenuating circumstances, backup quarterback here. The Giants are terrible, but even still, like, bad teams usually don't look that bad every week. So I do think it says something. I want one Eagles take before we get to the rest of the NFL. There was some Saquon Barkley, not as much now. There was some Saquon Barkley MVP buzz before this game. And how many players on the Eagles offense do you think are more valuable than Saquon Barkley? Just from an actual, if a player gets hurt, what's the impact on the team?
3.
Yeah, I think it's 3 too. I think he's like the 4th most valuable player. So I had a problem with him being pushed in MVP discussions at all because I don't think he's a top 3 most valuable player on his own unit on his side of the ball. But that's probably like a running back conversation as a whole other thing. Saquon's been fantastic. That's not me being negative on Saquon. But it kind of goes real quick MVP conversation because we had a back and forth on Twitter. You tweeted out that Jaden Daniels should be the MVP right now. As someone who's holding Lamar Jackson 18-1 to win MVP,
it's Lamar.
I am a little biased, but I think Lamar is like leaps and bounds above everybody right now.
Yeah, it's Lamar. It's going to be Lamar unless something crazy happens, in my opinion. On the Saquon thing, if you're not a quarterback, you just don't have a chance to win the award. The award has become which I think all of the awards are stupid. Personally, I'm not interested. I know that's what we talk about. We do the awards draft. I think the way that they are awarded is stupid. Same thing with like the Hall of Fame stuff, Pro Bowl, all that. But I hate all the individual awards. But you just don't have a chance if you're a running back unless you like break a record. Literally the last person that won as a running back set an NFL record. So you're good. You got to be a quarterback. And then if you're a quarterback, you've got to be a quarterback of a team that wins a lot of games and puts up a lot of counting stats. And right now, Lamar fits both of those. If it's not Lamar, it's probably going to be Josh Allen. Jaden Daniels is probably like 3rd-ish right now, I would imagine. I haven't looked at the odds. Is that about what the top 3 are?
I would imagine. I'll pull it up. Yeah, I there's some Henry buzz out there, some Saquon buzz from last week, but I can't imagine the odds reflect that. Let me.
Yeah, there's no chance on Saquon and Derrick Henry.
I agree, and I think that the conversation is so dumb every time MVPs get involved. Lamar is -110, Josh Allen +350, Mahomes +750. That's just because they're undefeated and he's sitting there. I think at this point the statistical difference is bigger. Jalen Hurts is 4th at 12-1. Kyler 15-1, and then you have Burrow, Jaden, and Goff all tied at 20-1. If I'm just ranking right now on what I would rank it, it's probably Lamar 1, Allen 2. I think you can make an argument for Burrow 3, just with how great he's been and how he's had to carry that team to wins, and the games he's lost, he's been really good. I'd probably put Daniels 4, and then I'd probably put Kyler 5.
Patrick Mahomes hasn't been a top 7 quarterback this year.
No, and I'm actually like not even. We'll get to the Chiefs. I'm not even as interested in like the whole conversation because we know what this is. Like I'm not worried about the Chiefs. I think they'll be elite offensively in the playoffs. But yeah, just from an MVP standpoint, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's roll on to the rest of the NFL slate. We'll kick it back to Thursday night football now, and we see. You mentioned Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow comes up short again, loses 34-35 to the Ravens. And he throws for 428 yards and 4 touchdowns with 0 interceptions, and the Ravens lose again. Like, I feel like that's all you need to say about the Bengals at this point in the season. Jamar Chase had 264 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. That's more yards than 23 quarterbacks had in week 10. It's more touchdowns than 29 quarterbacks had, and they lose the game. And at the start of the game, the defense looked good, but then the Ravens score touchdowns on their final 4 possessions of the game. They take a 35-28 lead with under 2 minutes to go. And then the Bengals drive down for a touchdown with 38 seconds left. They decide to go for 2 in the win, and they fall short. I liked the call to go for 2. You've literally given up 4 straight touchdowns. You feel like your 2-point conversion chance is better than winning the toss in overtime, probably. The officiating was awful at the end of that game. Terry McAulay on the broadcast said the Ravens got away with a defensive holding and a roughing the passer on the 2-point conversion. It's the officiating's atrocious this year, but we can't fix that. So I guess the thing I will say is the Ravens defense has some serious problems. They've given up 28 points per game over the last 6 weeks, and that includes a 10-point performance against the Broncos. And so Brett Eclipse here asks, could the Ravens pass defense cost them a Super Bowl run? I think it's certainly on the table. Their defense is really bad. And as good as their offense is, you do have to be able to get some stops when you get to the postseason. And I am officially concerned about the Ravens' ability to do that.
Kyle Hamilton did go out in the first quarter of this game, so that hurts. They're saying that I think that they got pretty good news from the MRIs. He's looking like it won't be long. They're saying we'll see how he looks. He's probably going to practice this week, so he'll probably be fine. But I would say that that's like a pretty massive piece to take out of the Ravens pass defense. Not that they obviously, you just laid it out. They have problems outside of that. I think that was exacerbated, and I don't think Jamar Chase is getting 300 yards on whatever it is, 264, if Kyle Hamilton's out there. But everyone's going to talk about, Burrow and Jamar doing what they did and losing. And obviously that's a story. But you go and you look at the better play. I think the best player in the game maybe didn't have the shiny stats that Jamar and Burrow did. It was Lamar Jackson. He was so efficient. Everything he did was with purpose. Like, it felt like every time they needed a play, he made a play. And you laid it out how they finished the game: 25 for 33, 290 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He had the same amount of touchdowns as Burrow. And people are going to say, Burrow had 140 more yards passing. Well, he did it in 25 more attempts or whatever, 23 more attempts here. So Lamar's yards per attempt was way up. I mean, they were taking shots down the field all game on this Cincinnati pass defense. And we talked about the Ravens pass defense being what could cost them from a Super Bowl run. The Bengals pass defense might cost them from the playoffs. They have such a massive game coming up this week. I actually like their chances. I think they are going to beat the Chargers in this game. I don't think the Chargers have the weapons out wide that are going to really, really punish them. Herbert's been playing incredible football, but I think the Bengals will be in the playoffs if you maybe make a guess right now. But that pass defense will be the reason that they miss it if they miss it.
I think the Ravens can only lose one more game.
You mean the Bengals?
Or sorry, yeah, the Bengals. Gosh, I'm having a rough time this morning. I think the Bengals can probably only lose one more game.
I think 7 seed in the AFC is going to be 9-8. Just okay. looking at the I think the Chargers and the Steelers will probably be in. Looking at around the NFL, and then it's going to be one of the Bengals, Colts, or Broncos. Bengals and Colts both 4-6. The Broncos are 5-5. Maybe a Dolphins at 3-6 could sneak their way back in. But I think that I don't think any of those teams get to 10 wins.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to see. They definitely at some point have to start clicking though. And that defense is atrocious, like you mentioned. So let's keep going here. Let's get to some really atrocious football in Chicago. New England beat Chicago 19-3. When I made my notes after watching this game, I wrote down the Bears have to clean house on their coaching staff, and Shane Waldron got the axe. I think it was overnight, this morning, whatever. But what they're putting out there offensively is inexcusable. They got their pick of quarterback. They spent a top 10 pick on a wide receiver. They got another receiver that was a key part of them trading down from number 1 overall the year before. You've got a running back you signed to a big contract, another big name wide receiver that's on the older end, but a vet you brought in this offseason, and the offense is utter garbage. Drake May looked better throwing to Austin Hooper and Demario Douglas behind an offensive line that people said was so bad you couldn't start Drake May than Caleb Williams did in this game. And I think it's a lot more about the staff in Chicago than it is about Williams, but Williams certainly has to get better as well. The Bears put up 142 yards of offense to a 2-7 Patriots team. And if that's not enough to get Waldron axed, which it was, it should be enough to get Eberflus axed. Like, keeping Eberflus and pairing him with number 1 overall pick at quarterback was just an asinine decision, and the Bears are paying the piper on that now.
Yeah, it's classic Bears. Anyone who listens to Part of My Take or Big Cat has heard him lay this out, but anyone who hasn't, when they drafted Mitchell Trubisky, they drafted him with John Fox and a lame duck GM. When they drafted Justin Fields, they drafted him with Matt Nagy and a lame duck GM. When they drafted Caleb Williams, they drafted him with Matt Eberflus and a lame duck GM. It's just not tenable to keep having to turn over things after you make the big pick, after you make the big investment on the franchise quarterback, and completely changing systems and schemes and ways that you do things just every year, it feels like. And yeah, I should have known that this was going to be more brutal. I was never an Eberflus guy at all. I never, but you looked at the weapons, you looked at how good Caleb looked as a prospect, and you figured, I mean, they're still 4-5, so I don't think they're going to win many more games, though.
Their schedule is tough.
It is absolutely brutal. Packers, Vikings, at Lions, at Niners, at Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, at Packers. I don't know if they're favored in another game this year. I really don't know if they are. Maybe Seahawks at home, but they might have 5 or 6 wins at that point. But and then you look at the other. I'm sorry.
They're 100% hiring Cliff Kingsbury to be their head coach this offseason, aren't they?
I don't think so. I don't think it feels Bears enough. Like, they like the meat and potatoes, and you mentioned Vrabel before.
Yeah,
that's a place I could see Vrabel going, and it's maybe not necessarily what I would want for Caleb. That'd be such a weird mesh of personalities there with Caleb and Vrabel.
Yeah.
On the other side, by the way, for the Patriots, I think they have a lot of winnable games coming up here. You saw the Rams not look very good last night. I can already tell you next week, my best bet is Patriots plus 5.5 at home as a home dog against the Rams. I think Drake May has made this team competent. You touched on it. The offensive line was said to be so bad that they couldn't play Drake May. Do you know why that is, Shane?
Why?
Because Jacoby Brissett holds the ball longer than any quarterback I've ever seen. It's what we've always known about Jacoby Brissett. That I heard is that Jacoby Brissett actually has like the number 1 interception rate of all time of anyone who's played like a certain amount of snaps or something crazy. And it's because he gets sacked. He doesn't, there's no time to throw an interception. If you hold the ball for 15 seconds, he gets sacked. So I think Drake May having so much more athleticism than Brissett, getting rid of the ball faster than Brissett, makes them a more competent team. It makes the defense look so much better. Christian Gonzalez playing like one of the best corners in football week in and week out. Ramondre Stevenson kind of back to where he was 2 years ago. It felt like, I guess not really, his yards per carry, still not very good, but obviously early on they had a really rough offensive line performance with Brissett out there, which hurt Stevenson. There's some games coming up with the Patriots. I think the Patriots could end up sitting around 6 or 7 wins. Like, you go Rams at home, at Dolphins, Colts at home. You've got a Chargers game at home. Like, there's a lot of winnable games for the Patriots with Drake May, which they shouldn't want to win them. But in terms of Drake May's development, I think we're going to get some fun May moments down the stretch. And it's uneven. It's not great 100% of the time. He had an ugly pick in this game, but he makes plays that remind you of the traits that we fell in love with, throughout the draft process. And it reminds me, that drive last week against the Titans to lead them to overtime before losing the game. He shows these flashes of being a truly special guy, almost a little Jordan Love-esque, I would say, down the stretch, how Jordan Love was last year. That's how May looks when he's looking really good.
When pressured this season, Drake May is 6th among quarterbacks in EPA per drop back and 10th in success rate. So
there you go.
All right, let's keep rolling along. We spent a lot of time on a totally irrelevant game for playoff purposes there. Let's go to Indianapolis, where Buffalo wins 30-20. This was not Josh Allen's best day passing the ball. He was 22 of 37 for 280 and 2 interceptions. But he just makes that one ridiculous play a week that reminds you he's an alien. This week, it was a 44-yard completion to Mac Hollins while scrambling to the sideline, and I swear he just jumped off his back foot and threw it 44 yards. It's insane. He does engineer back-to-back 13-play scoring drives to put the game away. At the end of the game, it was a field goal and then a touchdown drive. Meanwhile, Joe Flacco, who the Colts are starting over Anthony Richardson for reasons, threw 2 interceptions in his first 5 passes. He ends the day with 3 picks and 4 sacks. He also lost a fumble. Since moving to Flacco, the Colts have lost 2 consecutive games. He's looked bad in both. This isn't me saying Anthony Richardson's a good quarterback right now. It's me saying Joe Flacco is a terrible quarterback.
Yeah.
And you might as well play your essentially a guy that was a rookie that needs reps. But the Colts are being very stupid in how they handle all of this. Flipping back to Buffalo side, though, Taron Johnson was a game changer for the Buffaloes. He got a pick 6 early in the game. He had a sack of Flacco. He almost got another pick. So big game for Taron Johnson. Honestly, it was a big game for Kenny Moore, too. So slot defenders making a big impact in this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is my plea to make Joe Brady a leading candidate in head coaching cycles this upcoming offseason. They had 2 picks in this game, and they put up 30 points. Just to tell you about how well they were moving the ball, I think that goes to show you a lot with mistakes, being able to put up all those points. And yeah, by the way, catch the over with like 2 seconds left in this game, which was a nice win for me. That was a nice one. But James Cook stands out to me over kind of this whole season so far as a guy who's kind of leveled up into being one of those top 10 running backs in the sport. And I don't know if I ever considered him as one of those guys, to the point where I almost watched the games and I'm like, give him 25 carries. Like he's only had 20 carries once this year. He's hit 19 twice. He's had 17, but he's had 4 games with 11 or less carries. That shouldn't be the case. And I guess that doesn't bode well with right after me saying Joe Brady should be a head coaching candidate, saying that he should run the ball more with Joe Brady. But in this game, 19 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown. In other games, they've gotten him involved in the passing game. James Cook has kind of really like stepped up into that role of they obviously are lacking in weapons, and they traded for Amari Cooper, who's missed some time, and that should help with that. But James Cook is stepping up into that weapon role, even if it's as a running back. I think once they get Amari Cooper back, this is the 3rd best team in the NFL. And I know that there's a team in the NFC that would be shocked to hear where they'd rank behind them. But I think they're better than any team in the NFC. I really do.
All right. Let's keep rolling to one of their main rivals who we're going to see them play this weekend. The Kansas City Chiefs. They barely survive the Denver Broncos 16-14. The Chiefs trail by 1 with 11 minutes left, and they went on a 5-minute drive that ended in a field goal after Patrick Mahomes missed Travis Kelce in the end zone on a 3rd and 2. The Broncos then go on a 13-play, 43-yard drive. Think about that. 13 plays, 43 yards. Burn 6 minutes off the clock before they have a game-winning 35-yard field goal blocked. The Chiefs are the luckiest team in professional sports, man. If you flipped the result of every 1-score game, which is generally something you do in the offseason to be like, who was good and who was lucky last year? Because generally 1-score games are kind of a toss-up. They're a coin flip. If you flip the result of every 1-score game, the Chiefs would be 2-7. They are the lone undefeated team in the NFL, and they are 8th in point differential, which is just insane. But the Broncos did a good job defensively. They pressured Mahomes at the highest rate he's faced all season. They sacked him 4 times. They stopped the run. And on the flip side, Bo Nix looked sharp. I'm not a Bo Nix guy, but he was sharp in this game, I thought. 22 of 30 for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that was against a very good Chiefs defense, and he had little to no running game support. So I thought he looked good in this game, and Denver did everything but win it, basically.
Yeah, I had a Chiefs-Chargers teaser, and it was -1.5. So cashing that with the Chiefs winning by 2 on a missed field goal when I already kind of figured that was a loss added to what was a great Sunday for me. But yeah, they're the luckiest team in all of sports. It's unbelievable. I'm not even going to focus too much on that because you'll hear that everywhere, and it's obvious. They're the national game every week, and we see it every week, and this happens every week. It's crazy, but I actually think that they lose next week to Buffalo. But looking at Denver, Bo Nix was really good in this game, like you said. And I know that they only scored 14 points, but he really felt like he was keeping them in the game and made me uncomfortable at a couple points as someone who had bet on Kansas City. Something weird with them. Javonte Williams had gotten like 15 carries or more, 3 straight games, all of a sudden 1 carry. Audric Estime gets 64% of the design run snaps, 14 carries for 53 yards. So for the fantasy people out there, it appears Audric Estime, Notre Dame guy right here, is now the starting running back there. And Javonte Williams, who had 2 rough games in a row after kind of a little bit of a resurgence in the middle of the year, is gone from the plans, it appears. So that's a little bit of a fantasy nugget, but also a Broncos nugget. They're turning it over to the rookie, and we'll see if Estime is able to get things going. Not a great game, 14 carries, 53 yards, 3.8 yards per carry, no touchdowns or anything, but will be interesting to see if they continue with that.
All right, let's keep rolling. Let's go to the Superdome, where the New Orleans Saints snap a 7-game losing streak with a victory over the Falcons, 20-17. Atlanta missed 3 field goals in this game. One of them was blocked. The other 2 were just misses. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had 109 yards and 2 touchdowns on 3 targets. And at times, the Saints offense looked like it did at the start of the year in the first half. But then they went 3 and out on 5 of their 6 second half possessions. And Atlanta is almost able to win the game. Bijan Robinson had a good game. He rushed for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins threw for 306 yards, but he also threw a pick and he fumbled twice, as Atlanta drops a game that I don't think many people probably expected them to drop. What does this do to your Atlanta outlook, and what are your thoughts on the NFC South still? You still got Atlanta. I mean, it helps that Tampa Bay doesn't win either, which we're about to get to, but I guess nothing really changes in the South after this one.
Yeah, I'm choosing to believe that this was a little bit of a, just a coach gets fired game. Young Hoku missed 3 kicks here. Atlanta clearly outplayed them. So I'm not worried about Atlanta long term. Kirk had a couple weird plays in this game, but we'll find out a lot about Atlanta over the next 3 weeks, because it's like there's 3 straight spreads that I think will be within 3 points here. They at Denver. Denver's a 2-point favorite. They're home the week after that, or they actually have a bye after that. But then after that, they come home and play the Chargers. I think they'll probably be like 2-3-point favorite. Then they go on the road and play Minnesota. And they'll probably be like a 3-point underdog there. That's before playing teams like the Raiders, the Giants, the Panthers. So they do have 3 nice games out of their last 4 to close the year. But they don't have any games that you look at and go, oh, the Falcons can't win that. Like, they don't have a Chiefs or a Bills or a Lions or a Ravens or even an Eagles, who they beat coincidentally. But they do have like that Broncos, Chargers, Vikings, Commanders type team that maybe if they split those games, that means we're talking about an 11-6, 12-5 team. So I think that's where they'll be.
Yeah. Well, speaking of missing 3 kicks, we can go right into the Tampa Bay game. San Francisco at Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay loses by 3 here. But it was the 49ers who missed 3 field goals. They missed 3 field goals. They lost the turnover battle. They had more penalty yards, and they still won the game. Christian McCaffrey returned to the lineup for the 49ers, and he was very ineffective as a runner. He had 13 carries for 39 yards, but he did have 68 receiving yards, so making an impact in the passing game. Baker Mayfield went into hero mode at the end of this game. He had like a crazy run where on one play, he's stiff arming Nick Bosa, and like while he's engaged with him, while he's hanging on, he throws a dart downfield. He's breaking tackles while he's scrambling like 2 plays later. Unfortunately, that drive ended in a field goal instead of a touchdown. And so it was up to the defense to get a stop, to get it to overtime. And for the second straight week, the defense just couldn't get a stop. San Francisco drives down. They hit the field goal to win the game. It's a heartbreaker for Tampa Bay. If you're San Francisco, I don't know that it's like a awesome get right game coming out of your bye, because you got Deebo Samuel grabbing the long snapper's throat on the sideline. You got Christian McCaffrey not looking great, but it is a win, and a win is a win is a win. But things just still feel off in San Francisco, but they get the win. It's just a big missed opportunity for the Bucs.
Yeah, the Tampa defense is just not good enough, in my opinion, to matter down the stretch. I don't think they're going to be a team that makes the playoffs. And Christian McCaffrey didn't necessarily look right, I would say, but he made his impact through the passing game. With San Fran, Brock Purdy was so good in this game, and his ability to escape the pocket and make plays downfield is just something we didn't see before this year. And, almost 10 yards an attempt here. The stats maybe aren't as good and as pristine as they've been in years past, but when you watch the games, he jumps off the screen now in a way that I don't think he did in the past. So I'm kind of the opinion that San Fran has vaulted right back into the conversation of Super Bowl contenders. If you made me pick, I think that there's probably 5 teams that I would say are the front runners to win the Super Bowl right now. And it's Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, and then in the NFC, Detroit, and maybe biased, but Philly. You could throw Green Bay into that. I would throw San Fran right into that now as well. If Christian McCaffrey looks at himself down the stretch, I think people have kind of forgotten how much of an unlocking factor he is to any offense. He's so important to any offense he's a part of. I think San Fran's right back to being a contender.
All right. Let's keep rolling along to a team that's got a lot of wins in the NFC, but you notably left off your list there. And I fully agree, but the Minnesota Vikings at Jacksonville, they win 12-7. And the Vikings outgained the Jags 402 to 143 yards. They had 28 first downs to the Jags 10, and yet they trailed this game in the fourth quarter. Sam Darnold threw 3 interceptions in this game, and he almost had a 4th, and all of them occurred while targeting Justin Jefferson. On the Jags side, Mac Jones, who's playing for an injured Trevor Lawrence, wasn't any better. He threw 2 interceptions. He fumbled the ball. Even worse, those 3 turnovers came on the Jags' final 3 drives. And so the Vikings became the first team to win a game with at least 3 turnovers and 2 touchdowns since 2006, when the Packers did it against the Vikings. So, I look forward in 20 years to the Jags doing this to somebody else, because that's apparently the cycle. But 147 straight teams had lost in that situation, and the Vikings get the win. So ugly game. There was a lot of ugly football on Sunday, and we'll get into some more of it later. But the Vikings win. I'm not scared of the Vikings at all as an NFC contender, though.
No, the Vikings have clearly hit a wall here over the last month, where they lose to the Lions at home in a game that they made look closer than it was. They lose on the road to LA on Thursday night. They beat Indy, but they didn't look impressive at all in that game. And I think if Indy and Flacco would have played at all better, then Indy wins that game. And then here, if Trevor Lawrence plays, I think Jacksonville wins that game. It's a shame too, because coming up at Titans, at Bears, they might be able to play terrible and be 9-2 and win both of those games. It does get a little tougher down the stretch for them for sure. But they have 2 more Bears games and a Seahawks game. Who knows what Seattle is? So I think Minnesota is going to kind of fraud their way to 10, 11 wins, maybe even 12 if things go really right for them. And I won't be afraid of them at any point. Sam Darnold has kind of turned back in to Sam Darnold in a lot of capacities.
Yeah, turns out he's just not a very good quarterback. And Kevin O'Connell can make a lot of things work, but eventually you just have to have the quarterback or it's not going to work.
Yeah, and that's why everyone was freaking out that they were basically still saying that he wasn't going to be the quarterback when things were going well. It's probably always the right way to handle it.
Yeah.
I just MailChimped my marketing.
You MailChimped your what?
I MailChimped my marketing with AI to create an effective marketing campaign in minutes.
No, MailChimp and Way.
Yes, MailChimp in Way. Now I can hyper-personalize my campaigns across email and SMS.
You can do all that with MailChimp.
What did I just MailChimp and say?
MailChimp your marketing with the #1 AI-powered email marketing and automation platform, Intuit MailChimp. #1 based on publicly available data on competitors' customers. Plans vary. SMS available as add-ons. Visit MailChimp.com.
The holidays are back at Starbucks, and there's so much to share. With classics like Caramel Brulee Latte, Peppermint Mocha, and Chestnut Praline Latte, we're celebrating everyone's flavor of festivity. Order yours in the app.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/MBO. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, let's get into the afternoon slate. The Tennessee Titans at the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers win 27-17. Justin Herbert was 5 of 5 for 70 yards and a touchdown after halftime with 3 first down runs. Harbaugh is so committed to we're going to run the football. He's got Justin Herbert out here running the ball, breaking people's ankles now. I just thought that's just a hilarious stat line. Throws 5 passes in the second half, but runs for 3 first downs. But the Titans cut the deficit to 13-10 on their opening drive of the second half, but the Chargers went back-to-back touchdown drives after that. And that continues the thing for the Titans where they've been outscored 139-63 in second halves this year. And I just want to say, this is justice for Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel got to 6 wins with this team last year, and that should have been seen as a crowning. Mike Vrabel should have maybe been considered for Coach of the Year for getting 6 wins with this roster that has no quarterback. They have no skill players. They had no offensive line, and they got to 6 wins. And the Titans firing Vrabel was absurd. They need to take a hard look in the mirror at the atrocious way they've built this roster. But, that is what it is. They might have another one and done coach this year. We'll see. On the Chargers side, the Chargers have 18 sacks in the last 3 games. And my guy, Tuli Tuipulotu, has 2 sacks in this one, 5.5 in the last 3 games. I loved that guy in the draft. And by the way, they did all that while keeping Joey Bosa on a snap count from a hip injury, and Khalil Mack only played 4 snaps. So the Chargers defense is coming alive. I'm interested to see how this approach for them to their offense, it plays out down the stretch, if they can really make a potential run in the AFC.
By the way, who has apparently been one of the best corners in the league so far this year when he's played?
Who?
My guy, Cam Hart, Notre Dame, back to Notre Dame. It always comes back. But he's been awesome for the Chargers. And they were talking about how they had a DB coach who was pounding the table for him on day 3. And now I think he made 5 starts. He was their second highest PFF graded defender against the Titans in this game. So shout out to Cam Hart. But Justin Herbert before this game, and I'm actually not taking anything away from this game. 14 for 18, 164 yards and a touchdown. He just didn't have to do a lot to beat a terrible Titans team. The 4 games before this one, I think you can make a case it's the best 4-game stretch of Herbert's career. He only had the one really flashy 350-yard game. It's actually the one they lost, but 237 yards, a touchdown, no picks, 349 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 282, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And they went 3-1 in that stretch with 3 blowout wins. I think you could definitely make the case that Justin Herbert's playing better football than he ever has in his NFL career right now.
Yeah, I was going to try to look up his stats or his EPA stuff over that stretch. You said the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, I guess you could include this week. That EPA will still
so 6 through 10. It looks like he is 7th in EPA and composite. That factors in. Yeah, he's 9th in EPA, 7th in EPA and CPOE composite. So, good little stretch for him. Behind,
better, to be honest.
Yeah, it's behind. His EPA per play is behind Lamar, Goff, Murray, Hurts, Purdy, Burrow, Tua, Cousins. Cousins
has been really good when he's been good.
Yeah.
He's had 3 or 4 crazy games this year, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep rolling here to Arizona. The Jets get blasted in Arizona, 31-6. And Kyler Murray had himself a day. He was 22 of 24 passing for 266 yards and a touchdown. I think it was he completed his final 17 consecutive passes in the game. He also added 2 rushing touchdowns. The Cardinals scored 3 straight touchdowns to open the game, and they only settled for a field goal on the 4th drive because they ran out of time before half. It was a 1st and 10 in the red zone when they kicked the field goal. They scored a touchdown after half to make it 5 straight drives before they finally punted for the first time in the 4th quarter, up 31-6, which was the final score. The Jets can't tackle. They can't stop the run. They cannot cover anyone. They don't pressure the quarterback. They bust coverages regularly, and their offense is awful. Aaron Rodgers dropped back to pass 38 times in this game, and he had 128 net passing yards. The Jets, it's just a disaster. there's really nothing else to say about it. Rodgers going to retire after this year. They're going to be stuck with $49 million in dead cap. They gave up multiple first-round picks for this. It's just an all-time disastrous move in Arizona. Meanwhile, you look at the Cardinals, and their defense has suddenly allowed less than 10 points in 2 straight games. And so, granted, the Jets are in there, but the Cardinals are looking pretty good, looking like a team that, the NFC West is going to get exciting. If Arizona continues to play well, if the 49ers are back, that'll be a fun division to watch play out over the back half of the season.
Yeah, it's going to be a really fun race, I think, between the Cardinals and Niners. I think the Rams had a chance to get into it and lost last night. And I don't think the Seahawks will be a part of it. This is my best bet of the week, was the Cardinals. They were an underdog in this game at home against the Jets team that Vegas just refuses to quit on. And I don't understand why. This is a bad football team on both ends. I saw people are taking away Sauce Gardner's nickname. He's now Ahmad Gardner. Since he's been pretty bad lately. I don't know if that's a him problem or the rest of the defense problem, or if there's schemes that have changed without Saleh or whatever the case may be. But it comes back to the fact that Aaron Rodgers is terrible. He's one of the 5 worst quarterbacks every week. And who would have thought that we'd be here? I mean, obviously we knew that there was some risk with the Achilles, but I don't think any of us thought he'd be, putting up 6 points with Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson out there. With 151 yards, getting sacked a whole bunch. He was terrible in this game.
When Aaron Rodgers becomes your de facto GM and head coach, it never goes well. It didn't go well for the Packers. It's not gone well for the Jets. It's a cycle. It's a cycle that we've seen play out before, and the Jets are just the most recent team to fall under that. So, it's too late at this point. Like, you're just kind of screwed for the next couple of years now. And it's sad for the Jets because they built the defense that was ready to compete. And if you don't nail the quarterback, just none of it matters.
Budda Baker's been awesome lately for Arizona also.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the Sunday night game. The Detroit Lions at the Houston Texans. The Lions win 26-23. There were 7 interceptions in this game. 9 punts, 4 sacks, and a missed go-ahead field goal. There was an interception on the last play of the first half and then the first play of the second half. Then there were 3 more interceptions on the next 5 drives. So 5 of 7 drives with an interception in this game. Jared Goff had not thrown an interception since week 3. Jared Goff has 4 games this season where he has had 4 or less incompletions. But against the Texans, he was 15 of 30 and he tossed 5 interceptions. Just a wild game, sloppy game. The Texans led 23-7 at halftime, did not put up a single point in the second half. They did miss a 58-yard field goal that would have broken the tie and given them the lead with 2 minutes left, but that's as close as it got. CJ Stroud was 5 of 13 for 68 yards with 2 interceptions in the second half. And CJ Stroud's in the same position he was in last year. He's got an awful offensive line. He's got no wide receivers right now. Nico Collins is hurt. Stephon Diggs is hurt. But last year, he looked far better at elevating that than he has this season. Joe Mixon in this game had 26 carries for 46 yards, which is just insane. But it was a really brutal game for both offenses. Somehow the Lions come out with the victory. And Mark, this 7 interceptions in this game, it was the most combined interceptions in an NFL game since week 14 of the 2018 season. That was a game played between the Rams and the Bears. And in that game, Jared Goff was playing for the Rams, and he threw a previous career high 4 interceptions. So Jared Goff breaking records that nobody wants to break in this one. What were your takeaways from Sunday Night Football?
The Texans are so mid. They are so mid. I mean, obviously they don't have Nico Collins out there. Diggs is done for the year. I just don't take them seriously at all. If you were making me power rank teams, I don't know if they make my top 12. Like I just don't. I'm not impressed by them at all. Stroud has clearly taken a step back. Their play calling has gotten so much less inventive. Slowick went from being a big time candidate last year to, I don't know if he gets interviews this year with how Houston's offense has looked in a lot of ways. But, I mean, all you need to know, Detroit threw 5 picks and Houston lost the game. That's I think that wraps it up right there and tells you everything you need to know about Houston.
Yeah. Well, let's roll on to Monday Night Football then, where the slop fest continues. A lot of sloppy football, like I said this week, but there was a period in this game where Matthew Stafford throws a deflected interception that led to a Miami field goal. Then the Rams get the ball back and punt, but Tua throws a pick on the next play, or Tua throws a pick. On the next play, Kyron Williams fumbles, and then 4 plays later, Jared Verse strip sacks Tua. So it was just an ugly game all around. You get into the second half, though, and every possession in the second half ended in points, except for a missed field goal by the Rams on the opening drive. But the Rams are unable to recover an onside kick at the end to give themselves a shot. My takeaways from this game are about 2 rookie edge rushers. Chop Robinson has a good game. He gets 5 pressures in this one, but Jared Verse is the big guy. Mm-hmm. Jared Verse is a stud. You and I both had him in our top 10 rankings this year or last year going into the draft. I think we actually both had him number 9 overall. He had 6 pressures in this game. 2 were quick pressures, so under 2.5 seconds. He gets a sack. He gets a forced fumble. He recovers a fumble. Jared Verse is running away with Defensive Rookie of the Year, which is a shame for Quinyon Mitchell because he doesn't get the counting stats, and he's been equally good. But it is a counting stats award, and Jared Verse, he's already got this on lock.
Yeah, it's so dumb. It's so dumb that Quinyon, who is being like nationally recognized as a lockdown corner, isn't even going to be considered. He's plus 1,600, while Jared Verse is minus 500 right now to win that award. So that tells you everything you need to know. But I'm shocked that the Dolphins won this game without getting Tyreek Hill very involved, without getting Waddle very involved. Just a weird game in general on both sides of the ball. Even A-Chain, who was like the best running back in terms of yards per carry of all time, goes for 3.1 yards per carry in this game. It was a weird game. I'm shocked that the Dolphins won this one, to be honest. I really thought the Rams were going to take care of business. I kind of thought the Dolphins were just a bad team that we were giving the credit of, oh, well, they didn't have Tua, so that's why they lost those games. But I thought people were kind of overlooking some of the bad games that they had with Tua. But they figured out a way to win this one. And you know, you can kind of talk yourself back in if you're the Dolphins. You play the Raiders upcoming. You play the Patriots upcoming. You win those games. You're 5-6. You're right in the mix. So after that, you got games against the Jets. You have 2 games against the Jets. You have a game against the Browns. They probably have 5-ish or more games that they're going to be favored in. So interesting I kind of had already stuck a fork in the Dolphins. There's a chance that I forked them a little too early.
Yeah. And on the Rams side, it was just weird. Yeah, it was just weird because you got your guys healthy, and they've been so good at times when they've had Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Kyron Williams all out there. But it's just, this is a team that just, they're not consistent. Like, I will still be concerned when the Eagles play them in a couple weeks that Stafford will be hot and just like throw for, 5 touchdowns, because that's certainly in the realm of possibilities, but they're just not consistent enough to go make a run.
No, I agree. And yeah, McVay's such a good coach that they're going to show up in certain games, I think, with a great game plan. But yeah, I'm right with you. I don't think they're a relevant factor down the stretch.
All right. Well, that does it. That gets us through all of the Week 10 slate. Mark, before we get out of here, you got any final thoughts for us?
Final thoughts. What would my final thoughts be? I guess I'll give out my early leans for next week. What I used to do here for the final thought. I do like the Eagles -3 against the Commanders. I like the Ravens -3 at the Steelers. I like the Pats +5.5 against the Rams. I like the Falcons +2 against the Broncos. I like the Bills money line against Kansas City, and give me the Bengals against the Chargers.
All right, there you have it. Mark's early looks to next week. And this is a condensed week here on the Eagles Pinpoll Network, with the Eagles playing on Thursday night against the Commanders. So there's going to be a lot of content flying your way, all stacked on top of each other. So make sure you check that stuff out, or at least as much of it as you can before Thursday night. And we'll be back next week to break it all down. So thank you guys for joining us for episode 178 of Chalk Talk. If you enjoy what you heard on the show, and we know that you do, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode. You can drop us a 5-star rating wherever you stream your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at Shane Half NFL. He is at Mark Henry Jr. We will catch you guys next time.